Is up, RotoGrinders? We are back for another edition of FanDuel Friday. I am your host, TJ Zwarych, and we got a big show because it's Super Bowl Sunday coming up, and so a two-man booth wasn't enough. We had to step this up. We had to bring all the experts' analysis for FanDuel Friday. And so first up with me, I got my man Luuch at the top of the screen. How you doing?
TJ, I'm doing big game. NFL season's finally wrapping up, but the NFL does one thing. They do a great job of keeping us occupied because we already have offseason rumors swirling and Aaron Rodgers drama and trade speculation, and we've had numerous coaching moves. So I'm excited for the NFL season to wrap up. But in reality, does the NFL ever really sleep or take a day off? I don't think so. But should be a fantastic game. We're going to break it down with our guy Andre here as well.
And Dre, we're both Saints fans, you and I was hoping to spend this off season hoping for Lamar Jackson, maybe a little Aaron Rodgers consolation prize. And it looks like the leading contender to be our QB next year is going to be Derek Carr. I got to be honest. It's going to be an upgrade over Andy Dalton, but I'm a little disappointed.
I mean, it's more so I think the coach's problem. That's a whole nother situation though, because I don't mind Derek Carr. We know he's gonna ball out hard. We know he's a rider. He plays hard, and he had weapons around him. So I think he'll be fine as long as the coach does the right thing. I think we will be fine. And now the division's wide open. That Tom Brady retired. Only team you got to really worry about is Carolina, who's up and coming. Other than that, that's really it. I think we can put a stranglehold back on that division, though. But I'm just glad to be here too and talk some football. It's been a minute, guys.
That's so funny. I can't believe you guys are both Saints fans, and I kind of just realized that, even though I knew you guys both were. Like, Dre, you're from New York. The Jets are rolling. They're getting there. The Giants are playing good football. You're pretty far from New Orleans. TJ's so far north in North America that when his nose runs, it probably freezes every time he steps out of the house. And he's a Saints fan. So that's cool that you guys are loyal to teams that aren't close to you. I mean, I'm not a Saints fan. I guess I'm a hypocrite. I like a team that's like 800 miles away from where I live too. So cool stuff. I guess you guys have a common denominator to bond over.
Yeah,
definitely. Exactly. It's brought us closer together. But I mean, hey, the listeners don't care about the off season yet. This is a Super Bowl show for the Friday, not the Friday, the Sunday. It's Friday right now. The FanDuel Showdown slate here. We got the Chiefs. We got the Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 1.5. I'll throw this to you first, Dre, before we get into the positional stuff. How do you see this game going?
There's two ways to see this going, and both outcomes just ultimately lead the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game. And one way is where the game is going to be close, and high scoring, and they're going back and forth, but ultimately the Eagles pull it off because their defense is just a difference maker compared to Patty Mahomes and their offense and not having that many weapons besides Travis Kelce that are really explosive and that are not hurt. Or it's going to be a complete blowout and we see the Eagles just dominate in just a dominant fashion here. So I think it's going to go either one of those two ways personally. And no matter what, I just think the Eagles win this game overall too, and they're they're right to be the favorites here in my opinion. So yeah, that's just my opinion on it. But I think a big game is coming from this receiving core for sure. Also,
Luuch, how about you?
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be points. FanDuel is super interesting where raw points matter the most. We're seeing big ownership numbers on the quarterbacks. So many storylines in this game. I did a bunch of content this week, and Mahomes' injury, Jalen Hurts' injury, each of them had a week off. We haven't seen Hurts forced to do pretty much anything since he's been back because the Eagles just rolled through everyone they've played. He did miss some throws. I have no doubt that he can make a difference with his legs if he's willing to run, and I think he will be, which probably is like the difference in the projections gap between him and Mahomes, if I had to guess. So a lot of stuff going on here. You know, Travis Kelce has really high touchdown equity. I think he's kind of the X factor of the slate because he's super expensive and Can you stop Travis Kelce? I don't know. I mean, John Gannon had 2 weeks to game plan for him. Sometimes it just doesn't matter with Kelce. He's going to carry a high ownership number. Would either of us be shocked if he scored 2 or 3 times at this point? Absolutely not. But has a pedestrian game, then he becomes an integral fade in a tournament upside winning lineup. So there's so many angles here. The Eagles have so many guys who can score, and they run such a diverse offense that you don't really know who's getting the ball on any given red zone snap. So it's a tough one. And I know we're going to talk about Chiefs receivers eventually. Tyreek Hill left town, and Mahomes really spreads the ball out outside of Travis Kelce. Nobody's proven. Juju, big signing, down year. He's hurt. Kadarius Toney, great price. We'll talk about him for sure. He's unproven and volatile as it is too. Valdez Scantling. I mean, maybe we'll have some recency bias. He had a fantastic game a couple weeks ago in the last appearance, but historically, he's pretty terrible too. And he had a very long time to build rapport with Aaron Rodgers, and it was pretty terrible. So this is a strange game, and I'm looking forward to everything about it. It's going to be fun.
Call me crazy, but I actually think the Chiefs are going to end up winning this game. Anytime it's a close sort of toss-up game like this one, I always err to the side of the better quarterback. And I think Jalen Hurts is amazing, but I just don't think anybody's better than Patrick Mahomes. And so that's kind of why I'm going to the Chiefs a little bit. Both of these defenses are very similar in the sense that they pressure the quarterback. They pressure the quarterback a ton. Chris Jones on the KC side, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, etc. on the Philly side. And so to me, this game is just going to be about which QB makes more plays. Is Jalen Hurts going to be able to break out of that pocket and do it with his legs? Is he going to connect on a couple of long ones? Is Mahomes going to make some crazy sidearms throws that end up making the difference on 3rd and 12 after a sack on 2nd and 5? That kind of thing. And so I agree. I think some points are going to be scored, but I also think these defenses are going to be able to put up some points as well with the sacks and some potential turnovers in this one. But I think the Chiefs are actually going to come away with this one. But let's start talking about the MVP position from a optimal route. If we are talking optimal builds here, we basically have to go with Jalen Hurts at the MVP position, considering he is 4 points higher projected than Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is 6 points higher projected than anyone else. Now, if I'm trying to get contrarian here, in tournaments, I like the idea of just going Mahomes over Jalen Hurts at almost half the ownership. But to me, by far the best contrarian play you can go with on this slate is going to be Miles Sanders at sub 5% ownership. And he just has a very specific game script that makes sense to go with him being the leading scorer in this game. If they get up a heavy ahead and he scores a bunch of touchdowns, that kind of makes sense to me. So he's my favorite contrarian one. Mahomes would be sort of my single entry style. And then if I was doing cash, I'd probably go with Hurts. How about you, Dre?
Yeah, Hurts definitely for sure is my top overall MVP. But second, based on my game script that I'm thinking about and going with, I like AJ Brown here. I think this is a spot where he can win this matchup against his cornerback matchup real easy here in this spot and take advantage of it and score a couple touchdowns and have a huge game. Him and Devonta Smith, I think, like I said, I think they were both in for a huge games here. Which at that point, which is why I like Hurts at the MVP. But if I had to pick someone outside of Hurts, it's definitely going to be AJ Brown for sure. I just think this is, like I said, his spot right there to shine and show why Philly traded for him in the offseason and for this moment right here.
I think that makes sense. I like that. How about you, Luuch?
Yeah, it's tough between Brown and Devonta Smith. They have had an identical target share since November 14th. And we haven't seen those, bang 60-yard slant to the house plays that A.J. Brown seemed to do every week with Ryan Tannehill. And I can't figure out why, because this Eagles offense is more diverse. The RPOs, everything, all the motion, that should be opened up even more. So I agree. I agree in the sense that A.J. Brown has that in him. He's done it a ton of times. The Chiefs defense isn't very good. and they like to play 2 deep coverage and some man, which bodes well for both of these receivers. So I don't know if I want to play either one of them on FanDuel at MVP. Both of them have had ceiling games, and we've seen it. TJ kind of stole my thunder there with Miles Sanders. This Eagles backfield seems a bit congested. I don't think Boston Scott plays unless this thing's a blowout. So I'm not really worried about him. Gainwell definitely does have a role. Miles Sanders has looked fantastic though, and in the same breath, Travis Kelce, right, has the highest touchdown equity on this slate outside of any quarterback. Just because of the way the Eagles use both running backs, you never really know. So I think Kelce's ownership is pretty generous. And if that pass game is straight funneling through Kelce and 2 of 3 of Mahomes' touchdowns go to Kelce, let's say, then Kelce has a really, really high chance to be optimal here. There's some decent value, so I don't think paying up for 2 studs is really an issue. So I'm kind of torn between Kelce and Miles Sanders here. I just, when we get into some builds, it's kind of difficult to use Miles Sanders at MVP, and I really like that, TJ, because listen, if you're looking for leverage and you're playing large field stuff, you're probably going to run Miles Sanders at MVP, and more likely than not use Jalen Hurts with him. So things become pretty interesting, and it gets tough to build. So I kind of like the Miles Sanders call quite a bit. You stole my thunder there, man. He has 3 games of 30 or more fantasy points this season, and when Jalen Hurts is in, he's been really good. But we have to address Travis Kelce and what you guys are going to do with him. He's a key cog to every build, really.
Well, let's do it. Let's pivot over to the flex position here. And if we're building sort of anytime we make these builds, I like to kind of think of it as like a single entry tournament. Very few people are out here playing cash in a showdown, but we still want to build like a near optimal good lineup. But in the single entry, give us our own little tournament twist here. And so if we have Jalen Hurts the MVP, I think we're doing one of 2 things. We're playing Mahomes or Kelce. We can't really play both, because if we play both, if you're running 150, this is something that you can do. Mix in some Noah Gray, mix in some Zach Pascal, Sky Moore, Kez Watkins, 100%. But in a single entry optimal style tournament, I think that's a little deep for us. So we're choosing here one of Mahomes or one of Kelce. We can't get both. Dre, which one are you leaning to in this team?
Well, I would just honestly probably lean more towards Kelce here. Like you said, the touchdown equity is higher, especially on a site like FanDuel. It's more important. Pat Mahomes, he's still dealing with that high ankle sprain. I don't care what nobody says. Like, if everyone thinks he might have practiced fully and he might have looked, I don't know how he looked the way he did during that game, but you saw by the end of that Bengals game, him limping off that field. 2 weeks is not going to heal a high ankle sprain. I've dealt with those type of injuries before. It just takes you to get hit one good time, like he did in the Bengals game, to start limping again and not being able to be as mobile as you once were. So my route would be Kelce here in this spot here. I think he's honestly almost like a lock in the flex position if you're not playing him at the captain.
I think the difference in salary between the two, if you're thinking Jalen Hurts is the raw points guy, the difference in salary in this decision, in this situation, it's definitely Kelce.
I do think that makes sense. The one issue I have a little bit is a lot of the players I want to fill in my lineup with in terms of cheapies are Chiefs, and that does just allow a little more correlation with Mahomes, because if he happens to throw them the touchdowns, I get the double points on that one. But you guys are right in the terms of that salary saving. It does make a big difference in terms of the 3rd or 4th player you can get in your lineup in terms of their quality. And so based on this being 2 against 1, we're going to put in Travis Kelce as our third play, as our second play here. If we aren't getting Mahomes in this lineup, that does allow us to afford a Miles Sanders, A.J. Brown, a Devontae Smith in this lineup with us as well. For me, I'm thinking every dollar is going to kind of matter here at this point in this lineup. And so the one I think I'd be most willing to throw into this lineup would be Devonta Smith. just with those target shares being similar and him being $1,000 cheaper. But if I find at the end of the lineup that I can afford to get AJ Brown in there, I don't hate that idea as well.
I agree with that 100%.
What about you, Luuch?
Well, don't discredit yourself. I like where we're at for making an optimal build here with taking Hurts at the MVP, with Kelsey at the flex. But I know you're a large field tournament guy, TJ. So if I think you're 100% accurate, it's about contest selection here. If I'm playing a little more optimally, I like putting Kelsey in here. If you're playing something, like the $5 milli and you want to get a little unique, maybe you take Kelsey out, you play Mahomes. You got guys like Valdez-Scantling and Kadarius Toney, and dealer's choice of guys that Mahomes throws an 8-yard touchdown to on one target that could do some damage at the bottom here as well. So, I mean, if Travis Kelsey goes for 7 and 90 but doesn't score, is he optimal? Maybe not at his price. So I think you're kind of onto something, but I think it's based on contest selection here. And I know you like Kadarius Toney, and so do I, which just feels nasty. But but here we are, man.
So if we're plugging in Devontae Smith, thank you. I appreciate that. That does make me feel a little bit better, because that is kind of something that, if we're saying like we want to maximize our floor and our ceiling here, Travis Kelsey for that salary is probably the one I want to go about it. But if I'm just talking ceiling in large field tournaments, then mixing in some of those cheaper guys with Mahomes probably is a more unique way of going about it. Are you on the same page that Devontae Smith makes sense for optimals to be our third piece here?
Yeah, and so does Goddard. They're both fairly priced. Goddard probably has slightly higher touchdown equity than Devontae Smith. That being said, I think Smith's ceiling is higher. We've seen a couple of multi-touchdown games out of Smith. I think he could really blow the top off this defense. I'm so conflicted between AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, because I think AJ Brown is the better receiver, Dre, and you're pretty pro AJ Brown. But I think just his presence on the field, defenses know that, and they have to honor that. That being said, it doesn't matter how many guys are on AJ Brown. We've seen him go beast mode. And if the Chiefs are going to play man coverage, it could be either one of these guys that is optimal. That being said, Dallas Goedert's playing possessed lately. Jalen Hurts has targeted him quite a bit. You could play both of these. I mean, that looks like a pretty damn good build to me too, and you have some pretty nice salary there left over. Obviously, if you go AJ Brown and Goddard, you have to go a little bit deeper there, but it's really tough to say. I'm stuck on each of them having basically an identical target share. So, against kind of a porous defense here. So trying to decide who's going to go off is a tough one. We probably have a different little bit of recency bias conversation if Jalen Hurts doesn't overthrow him by 25 yards against the AJ Brown against the 49ers, and that box score's looking a little different. So I do agree with you, Dre. There's some points left on the field from Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. And I don't mind this, and I don't mind either or. Honestly, to me, they both are number one receivers. So, and the weakness of this Kansas City defense, as I alluded to, pretty much like all postseason, is their secondary. It's been a theme for them all season, and why their games have been such like high scoring shootouts, because their secondary is just giving up points to elite receivers. So both of these guys here, Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, I think are very viable here. Goddard is definitely someone that I think is getting a little bit overlooked. When he can easily go off and have a big game and control that middle of the field here too as well. So I like that call a lot. So either one of them I don't have an issue with. It's just like, and the thing about this is what makes this interesting. If we're building like a GPP, you even if you really wanted to just go with like I think it might be an onslaught. You could go any kind of direction with this type of build. You could go with another receiver from the Philadelphia Eagles, which like a Quez Watkins, who I think who gets on the field a little bit, but I think he can definitely get a touchdown. Or like you said, Boston Scott, if you think it's a blowout and he ends up finding his way into the end zone here because they're just up by so much. So like things like that, if they start happening, that's a way to win $1 million just off that with the optimal kind of build in a way.
Scott, Watkins, Pascal, all of them provide to be good extra differentiators that complete a full stack. And the other thing I don't mind here with somebody like Travis Kelsey in this build is like we haven't seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire for weeks, but he fits this lineup and you don't have Mahomes. So maybe he vultures in a rushing touchdown and happens to end up optimal here. My favorite route would be Kadarius Toney, but again, I'm not going to fill that in. Don't want to complete up the full lineup. If you do go with one of those cheap guys like Kez Watkins, like Zach Pascal, then you can afford to get up to AJ Brown here instead of Devonta Smith. Sorry. One thing I want to run through a couple quick ones here, just based on if I were to do a Mahomes MVP type team, how I would want it to look. I would either go one of two ways here. I would put in Jalen Hurts, and then I would fade Travis Kelce, and I would focus on the likes of Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kadarius Toney, and heck, maybe even a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster or Isaiah Pacheco, and just go full KC here and kind of think, all right, Hurts is going to run for a bunch of yards, and Philly's going to try and shut down Travis Kelce, so the touchdowns are going elsewhere. The other way I would try and build that would be play Travis Kelce with him, fade Jalen Hurts, and then if I'm fading Jalen Hurts, I'd want to make sure I get Miles Sanders in here, and then still I'm going with the likes of the Valdez-Scantlings and the Tonys here in that one.
I have another way with that one. Like, we know all these receivers are all probable, but they all have shown that they have been injury prone throughout the season and get hurt throughout the game, right? And we see Clyde Edwards-Helaire back here. What if they just put out wide Jerick McKinnon? They can do that. That's a very possible thing, especially it's one game to win it all. You got to pull shots. You got to have your best players on the field. Jerick McKinnon's an interesting guy that I think you can pair with Pat Mahomes and a guy like Travis Kelce, because you have Pacheco and you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire who can both handle the rock and run that ball in between the tackles. And McKinnon could be the pass catching back / wide receiver and be out there catching passes and be another option. So I think that he is someone I think you could pair with Mahomes and a guy like Kelce as well.
I agree with you there. And then just based on exactly like you said, these Q tags, like they're probable tags now, but Juju's been in and out of practice. Tony's been in and out of practice. We already know Patrick Mahomes likes to spread it around, so I don't have any issue taking shots on Sky Moore, Justin Watson, Noah Gray. If you're running a lot of lineups, even like play Jody Fortson, play Jack Stoll in these games.
I shouldn't say thank you, but
like get these guys in there too. Like if I'm building 10 or more lineups this week, I'm going to have one of mine be something like this where I'm playing Mahomes, Hurts, and Kelce.
Yeah.
And then I'm dropping in my last couple guys as like Noah Gray, 5,500, and then I can pick any of these 6K guys in my last piece. Like, I like that variation a lot for large field tournaments.
Jody Fortson, Noah Gray, and Justin Watson have all caught touchdowns this year. Who's to say one of them is not going to do it in this game? So, yeah, if you're running a lot of cheapies, and all of those guys are going to be sub 5%. I mean, the tight ends will probably be like 1% to 2%. If they get that, see their target, like the tight ends, Noah Gray and Fortson, their targets are a lot more valuable than like the Quez Watkins target. So if you look at the Quez Watkins Dallas Goedert splits, Watkins was a bit of a baller when Dallas Goedert wasn't playing, but when Goddard has played this season, Watkins barely gets any looks. You know he's not getting any red zone looks. Those tight ends, odds are they're going to get at least one red zone look between them on Kansas City. Noah Gray played a lot. Blake Bell didn't play last week. I think that's very interesting. Now that Jody Fortson came back, they kind of like Noah Gray. And I think Justin Watson returning, I'm just talking about cheap guys here, rolling along here. I think Justin Watson coming back, just from what I've seen in snap counts, I feel like they trust him more than Sky Moore. So with Juju healthy, well, he's going to play, right? With Juju and Kadarius Toney going to play and Justin Watson coming back, I think Sky Moore is probably like the odd man out in this one. Do you guys have an opinion on him? Because, everybody loves to jam in Sky Moore in every tournament build, that they make all season long.
I have a pretty strong take here with this because I kind of view their depth chart as so. Justin Watson is the backup for both Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. he will, anytime one of those two players comes off of the field, he will be the one who runs their route. Sky Moore runs the same route tree as Kadarius Toney, Mecole Hardman, and Sky Moore. Those three are they're kind of three interchanging in the same position. Sometimes they'd throw Hardman and Valdez Scantlings, but for the most part, Watson backs up those two guys, and then Moore, Hardman, and Toney kind of run the same route tree. So we already know Mecole Hardman is out for this game. I want to kind of play either Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore, because to me, Kadarius Toney is the one who's likely going to have a big game. But if he gets hurt, Sky Moore is the only one left to run that route tree. Maybe it's like Dre says, and they put in some Jerick McKinnon in that spot, a little bit of improvisation. But Sky Moore is like the only one of that small, speedy group left after Toney and Hardman. And so he's the last one to kind of occupy that space.
0 touchdowns this year. Doesn't mean doesn't mean he won't score in the Super Bowl though. But I'm more prone to using one of these tight ends.
It's just like it's exactly what we saw last week though, right? Because Mecole Hardman left injury. Kadarius Toney left injury. So how many targets did Sky Moore have last game? 7. He only caught 3 of them.
I love that build idea.
That's like that. I love that idea of just because of how underpriced Toney is. I want to play him or Sky in most of my lineups.
Got any value takes, Dre? Because I'm a little I mean, you should feel nervous investing in Toney, but I like the role that he could potentially have, and like he's the gadgety guy. Yeah. He's the poorest man's ever Tyreek Hill. Like not even close, but he kind of fills that void of jet sweeps and motion. Thing is, he could play one quarter and pull a hamstring or this or that. He's made of glass, so it's kind of scary. But I love the upside with Toney. Give me devil's advocate here, or do you agree with us?
Honestly, my guy would probably be. I mean, it really just depends. Like Sky Moore, I don't mind Sky Moore at all. It's just that how many targets does he get when he's on the field, when he's actually in the games? Like I'm looking at some his log right here. It's pretty healthy for a good amount of the season, but also this was also before Toney got there, which is what you really want to look at. So like a guy like Justin Watson, he even though he's only caught, he's been targeted like 2 times. He's been targeted 2 times consistently in every game he's played, from what I've seen so far, and it's caught at least one or both balls. And one of them obviously can go for a touchdown. So he's still, I think, that's going to be well off radar that I think you can go with and go and have the upside there. I also don't mind Noah Gray, like he's mentioned before. I think he also is another good option here as the opposite tight end of Travis Kelce to, possibly have a touchdown today. I mean,
he plays a lot. He plays a lot of the snaps. So, but like I'm definitely making a build rule with I don't want both of those lesser tight ends. You don't want Gray and Fortson together, but one of them could do it. Before we start wrapping up, because I know it's probably where we're going next, TJ, I want to mention one guy who we got through this whole show without saying his name, and I think it's warranted to at least bring him up, especially if you're super interested in fading Pat Mahomes, is Isaiah Pacheco. I think listen, I don't think they'll have a ton of success against the Eagles on the ground, but all it takes is one pass interference flag inside the 3. Pacheco bangs it in. It's not like this guy can't run the football. And he ran 26 routes out of the backfield last week, which was 10 more than Jerick McKinnon. It was a season high for Pacheco. Perhaps Andy's finally given him the bell cowish look. I can't fathom Edwards-Helaire having a role whatsoever, but there's some merit to rostering Pacheco this week in this game, which is projected to have a ton of points. And, the Eagles defense, we keep hearing about it. And don't get me wrong, their front 7 is one of the deepest in football. But when it comes down to it, the best quarterback that they've played this year is Dak Prescott, and he's had a terrible season for the most part. I mean, it's just incredible. This is a poor man's analogy and comparison here. I feel like the Eagles are Gonzaga, who have a ton of talent and should win, but they play in the West Coast Conference, right? And the Chiefs are like battling their asses off, squeaking by the Bengals, squeaking by inferior competition. I know the Eagles beat the Vikings. They've had some quality wins. They haven't been punched in the mouth in a while. I think the Eagles are the more well-rounded team. I think they have more talent collectively. I think their defense is better, but that Chiefs offensive line is pretty underrated. they're top 5. So maybe they, Mahomes' escapability is definitely in question, like you alluded to, Dre. But this is definitely one of the better offensive lines that the Eagles front seven is going to have to deal with. So this should be one hell of a game, is the bottom line. But I definitely didn't want to forget about Pacheco, who I think is a really great tournament option if you're willing to fade one of the Chiefs' high-end studs.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that makes a lot of sense. Drake, give me a final score for this one.
Well, I'll give you 2. I'll give you the viral one that we say when they say the NFL games are scripted, which is 34-37, which I don't think is going to happen. But I've been trying to think about this because I got to go, honestly, to place a bet on this one in Jersey or PA. And since they don't allow you to do the final score in New York here. I think it's going to be, I'm going to say 28-24. I think 20-24 is a score that I like. I think that's appropriate for this game. I could possibly see even being in the 30s, but I think 28-24 is the way it goes here.
28 for the Eagles, 24 for the Chiefs. Luuch, how about you?
I think I said 30-28 on the show the other day, Eagles, and I'm so conflicted that I'm just taking the over. I'm taking the over 50.5. If I think I can find out a book or two yet. I have a little bit of action on it, but I'm gonna ramp it up because I think the consensus is between a bunch of really intelligent people I've talked to this week at RotoGrinders and my own collective thoughts here is that there's some weird mismatches. And, this is by far the best. I mean, the Chiefs are the best, arguably the one of the top 2 teams in football, the best competition the Birds have played. I'd be shocked if there wasn't points in this thing, guys. I really would be. But it's the NFL. I could be really wrong.
Yeah, and that's the thing that kind of scares me too. Like, we're predicting the high scores here, but I get you when you say who have the Eagles played this year, but that secondary is no joke. It really
Agreed.
is. They have elite. They have really good corners and really good safeties, and then just like you said, up front, they can get to the quarterback without rushing any of the backers. Like that's the thing that makes Philadelphia so unique and allows them to drop back and play the coverage defense and allows them to play man on the outside and feel comfortable with it. And this is Slade's best year in the NFL by far. So. It could be low scoring, but I really do think it's going to be, like you said, some points on the board here.
Both of these teams' strengths on defense are their defensive lines. And so, to me, I think whichever team is able to get after the quarterback a little bit better probably comes away with this one. Excuse me. I trust Hurts's legs more than Mahomes. I trust Reed's schemes to keep Mahomes on his feet a little bit more than Sirianni's, I think. I'm going to go with 34 for the Chiefs, 31 for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Chiefs come away with a narrow victory on this one. We all think it's going to be close. We all think there's going to be some points scored in this one. And hopefully we helped you make a little bit of money on this slate as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And that's it for FanDuel Friday for NFL season this year. We're still going to be back for NBA today and for the rest of the season with you, but that's it for NFL. So good luck for this in the Super Bowl. We hope you've had a great NFL season. Hit that like button for us, and thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.